Good morning in the UK to everyone, and good afternoon in the US. I am very, very excited and privileged to have been joined by no other than Guy Kawasaki. And Guy, I would like to give you a warm welcome, first of all, and thanks very much for joining me online this evening.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's amazing, how this interview went about just by uh, communicating with you through Twitter, and here we are talking about the new book, The Enchantment. So, Guy, let's get started first. Guy, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what you do.
I am, well, that's a simple question. I am the author of this new book called Enchantment. I wrote this book to help people become more enchanting. I used to work at Apple. I was Apple's chief evangelist, and I was also Apple's, an Apple fellow. So it was my job to make sure that Macintosh would be successful. And since working at Apple, I've started a few software companies. I've become a writer and a speaker. And I also run a website called Alltop, which is a site that aggregates news by topics.
Yes. Yeah. And it's a magazine for online, blogs and websites, right?
Basically, yes.
Okay, cool. And how long were you at Apple?
I've been working at Apple, or I have worked at Apple twice, from 1983 to 1987 and 1995 to 1997.
So do you have any hobby or favorite sport?
My favorite sport and hobby is ice hockey. I love to play ice hockey.
But hockey is supposed to be played on grass and astroturf. Have you ever seen the hockey which the rest of the world plays without the punch-ups?
Well, no, not cricket, not rugby, hockey, ice hockey, like Canadians play.
Yeah, my son, whenever he watches the ice hockey, he just calls me straight away, Dad, oh, there's a big fight going on. Is this real? I don't know whether it's staged or real. So do they fight for real?
There is a code of fighting, how fights occur, but it's not like wrestling where it's staged. I mean, these are real fights.
Oh, I see. So there is a code of conduct for that. Oh, that's a new one for me in sport. Oh, that's brilliant. Cool. So while you've been working with Apple and you started software companies, how did you start writing and why?
Yeah. I started writing in 1987. My first book was The Macintosh Way, and I wrote it because I was not happy at the job I was in at that moment, which was running a software company. So I wanted to write a book about how things should be as opposed to how they were for many people. And since 1987 till today, I have written 10 books now, and Enchantment is the most recent one.
And obviously Enchantment has gone straight to #1 in all the various lists.
It's not quite true. I mean, it's been on a bestseller list. It's interesting with the book. The first week that it comes out, because of all the marketing I did, there was a huge pent-up demand. And so it went on the New York Times bestseller list the first week. The second week, it wasn't on the list. So this is a classic marketing problem that Jeffrey Moore discusses about crossing the chasm. So, the way he discusses crossing the chasm is it's easy to get the early adopters because the early adopters, they're Guy fans, right? And they'll buy whatever I write. The question is, can you go beyond the Guy fans onto Main Street where people who don't know who I am necessarily will buy the book? And so that's kind of where I have to do battle next.
But you are a marketing guru and a marketing genius. I'm sure you shouldn't have this problem. If you're having this problem, then God help the rest of us.
Well, you know something? Let me tell you. First of all, I don't look at myself as a guru because, once you start looking as yourself as a guru, it tends to cloud your judgment, shall I say. Arrogance is the enemy of enchantment. And listen, one of the things I've learned in my career is it's better to be lucky than smart. So I'd rather be lucky.
Yeah, I mean, you are a very, very modest guy in what I've just heard you say that. Not many people would say that on a live interview, and I really, really do respect for you. And with regards to, approaching you, I've emailed you on quite a few occasions, and you have emailed me back. Now, I'm a photographer, and quite often I do send out emails to other so-called big names,
Yeah.
an interview or for a chat, etc. And I never ever do get a reply back from them. So I was very, very pleasantly surprised when you replied back and agreed for an interview. And here we are.
Well, one of the ways to enchant people, honestly, is very simple, which is answer your email. And clearly it works.
It works, absolutely. And you do the things which you write about in your book.
I try.
Start on, so what is enchantment and why is it so important?
Enchantment is this process of changing the hearts, minds, and actions of people. It's built upon a trusting relationship with people that's mutually beneficial. It starts with being likable and trustworthy, and having a great product or a great idea. And I mean, that's the key. One thing I've learned about enchantment is, it's much easier to enchant people with a great product or service than with a piece of crap. So, try to affiliate with something that's great.
Yes, it is. Now, with enchantment, does this only apply for big companies, or can smaller or people who are working from home can also use enchantment to take their business forward?
Oh, quite the contrary. I would make the case that it is easier for single single person operation or a small company, because then it is truly just the person who is going to be doing this enchantment. Whereas if you're working for, let's say, take an extreme. Let's say you were working for British Petroleum. You have to overcome a lot, and you have to deal with tens of thousands of people. So yeah, it's so much harder.
Yeah, it's a lot easier because you are the main person behind your business, and you can quite easily enchant people the way you want to. So why are Apple and especially Steve Jobs so brilliant or so very good at enchanting people?
Well, I think that the key to the enchantment. Oops, sorry. Let me get rid of this call. I think the key to the enchantment powers of Apple is that it has such great products. And, with great products, wow.
But there are lots of other companies in the world who have got great products, but they don't create that buzz which Apple and Steve Jobs do every time they release a new Mac.
Well, but I might disagree with you a little bit. There's not that many companies that have great products. I mean, really great products. I'm sorry, but you're breaking up on me now. I think we jinxed ourselves because we said that you're so cool and how it's working so well with technology, and now the technology gods heard that, and so they're getting revenge.
Okay, so let's move on to what is ethical enchantment and unethical enchantment?
Okay, so unethical enchantment occurs when you are trying to get people to do something that is not in their own benefit. So I think by definition, if you're enchanting people, it's mutually beneficial, or at least beneficial for them. Maybe it's not beneficial for you. But if you want enchantment to really last, it has to be mutually beneficial. And when you are trying to manipulate people into doing something that's only good for you, that's simply not ethical.
So can you give an example of unethical enchantment?
Oh, well, you know, it would be a case where it's usually a case where someone is trying to get you to buy something that you shouldn't buy. Uh,
Okay.
things like that. Like,
So would
in
you,
fact, in fact, I'm so cognizant of unethical enchantment that there's a chapter in the book that explains how to resist enchantment
yes,
for these very cases.
yes. So is that like hard selling or upselling of products to consumers or customers unethical?
Well, upselling is not necessarily unethical because you could upsell someone to something that's better for them.
Yeah.
The real test is will it benefit them or not?
Hmm. Okay, so it needs to be both 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 parties should be able to get mutual benefit out of it.
Yes.
So if you were to advise someone who runs a small business how to enchant the audience, what would the single most important thing be?
Well, I mean, it's more than a single thing. The They have to build a foundation of likability, trustworthiness, and quality. I mean,
Yeah,
because if you're not likable, no one's going to let you enchant them. If you're not trustworthy, they may let you enchant them once, but not the second time. And
yeah,
no matter how likable and trustworthy you are, if you have a piece of crap,
yeah.
you're not going to enchant them.
But internet or websites are a very cold place. How do you get somebody to like someone just via the website or an
Oh,
or
I think that it may not just be a website, which is pull technology,
mm,
but it's the social interactions. It's Twitter, it's
yeah,
Facebook, it
yeah,
is email.
yeah.
Those are the opportunities to actually engage people and have personal contact with them.
Has that completely transformed the way you enchant your followers?
Uh, well, it depends how you use the word completely.
I mean, before, say, pre um, Twitter and Facebook, going back a few years, I'm sure you must be enchanting your followers and you build up a fan base. So how did you manage to do that before Facebook and Twitter? Is
Well, I do a lot of email every day,
yeah,
and so that was probably my primary mechanism. So
mm,
actually, with Twitter and Facebook, I think that enchanting people is easier now
yeah,
because there's a mechanism
that's
through
right.
which you can engage people that just didn't occur before. Now, in
Yeah,
point-to-point email, you can enchant people, but you can only enchant people one-on-one, point-to-point. And now, when people see how you respond publicly on Twitter or Facebook,
yeah,
even though the message isn't to you,
yeah.
you can see how the other person is acting.
Yes, Facebook is very good at that, isn't it? Because
Yes.
it just creates the whole social thing all on a website where people can really understand each other and interact with each other. Okay, moving on to overcoming resistance and reluctance to buy from your clients. How can you overcome that?
Uh, in a sense, the resistance, you should expect it, especially if you have something that's really great and innovative. It's ironic, but you would think that if you have something great, it would be easier, but often it's harder, and I learned this with Macintosh. If Macintosh were a slightly better Apple II or MS-DOS machine, it would have been easier to introduce it, not harder. But
Yeah.
Macintosh was so different that we had to overcome such resistance. And one of the
Hmm.
most powerful ways to do this is to provide social proof. That is to ensure that people see other people using your product or service so they
Yeah.
get this message that it must be good, it must be okay, many people are using it.
Yes, but even though Macs are better computers than PC, there was still a resistance to buy them.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So I'm saying that, well, for one thing, enchantment is a process. It is not an event. It's not just announce it and it works. You would love if that were true, but it's seldom true. What it really takes is you're willing to grind it out and to, just keep at it.
Now, with regards to launching products, can I just ask you, for small businesses with small budgets and resources, what advice can you give for a product launch or a good product launch?
Okay. I think there are really several key aspects to a product launch for a small business. First of all, it would be very helpful if you can tell a great story about the genesis of your product or service, why you created it, how it came to be, because people take a human interest when they know the story behind a product. When you're telling this story, you need to sell it as a dream. I mean, you don't stand up and say this is $188 worth of parts. You say this is an iPhone, and an iPhone is cool, and there's an app for that, and it'll change your life, and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And so now you've told the story, you've sold a dream, and this is probably the two most important things in this launch phase. You also should make the description of your product or service very short and sweet, so that it doesn't take 5 minutes to explain what you do, because you won't have 5 minutes.
Yes, and on one of the chapters in your book, you did mention about that restaurant or that place where they offered too many choices, even though they had lots of people stopping by on the stand. Not many were buying from them.
Yeah, so there are some circumstances where if you offer too many choices, you create such confusion in people's minds that they don't make a decision at all. There are other instances where by offering more choices, you appeal to more people, and both theories can work. It's very difficult to predict whether it will go one way or the other. So I present both theories so that people are open to trying each one.
Now, when I read this chapter and that paragraph about the present, the big, and then the small choice, I was pretty much laughing my head off inside myself, because I was reading this paragraph and chapter on the train. To give you a very good example, my daughter, who's 8, we've got a little park across our house. Whenever I go to call her to come back inside the house, she will start at 10 minutes, Dad, and I'll say no. Then she'll say 5 minutes, Dad. I said no. And then she goes, 2 minutes, please, and then I'll say yes. Okay. And it's exactly the same thing which your daughter does. So these kids are pretty clever. They don't need to read a book by Guy Kawasaki.
The exact same thing happens with me and my daughter. Believe me, I know.
If I could ask you to tell our audience what your daughter does to you.
Well, we have this toy store near our house called Cheeky Monkey.
Yeah.
And she always says, can we go to Cheeky Monkey? And I say no. And then she says, well, can we go to Safeway and get a treat? And so I always say, okay, so we can go to Safeway.
Yeah. I mean, how do these kids so young learn to negotiate these kind of stuff?
I don't know. I know my daughter has not read my book.
Is it a case of the dads being wrapped around the fingers?
Maybe it's DNA, yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. Now, coming back to social media, I hear and see a lot of people say that I don't have time for Twitter and Facebook. Could you say a little bit about how important these platforms are for any small business?
Well, I think I think that when someone says they don't have time for Facebook and Twitter, 15 years ago, people were saying, I don't have time to do a website. So you know, imagine how preposterous it would be for someone to say, I don't have time to do a website. And that's what it sounds, that's what it's going to sound like pretty soon for Twitter and Facebook, that they're going to be such an integral part of all kinds of marketing that to say that would be absolutely ridiculous.
And secondly, and the best thing is, it's for free.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
It doesn't cost a single penny. And, you know, I've been trying to get my wife on Facebook and Twitter. She has got an account, but she needs to get on Twitter fairly regular. Oh, it's been brilliant chatting to you guys. Thank you so much for your time, and it's been a pleasure.
I hope that you enjoyed the book, and I hope your listeners and your customers will also read the book. Thank you very much, too.
Oh, no, the book is absolutely brilliant, and I cannot recommend enough how good this book is. In fact, I'm reading it the second time around, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it, and I shall be putting it up on my blog and my websites, this interview, and put out the message that you've got to read this Enchantment, because it is so very true what you have written in there. And what you say is what you do. I truly do believe in it now. And you've been a star. Thank you ever so much for your time, because quite a few of you send me an email thinking it's an April Fool's joke. They did. And I said, no, it's not. I have got a guy online that later on this evening. So there you go. There you are. The interview has been recorded, and